Hey guys, this is Alex, and welcome to the Two Dudes Brews Interviews podcast. On today's episode, we're talking about By the Way, the 2003 album by the alternative rock band the Red Hot Chili Peppers. We discuss the album track by track, getting into the history of the group, the background context of this album, and we debate the quote-unquote classic status of the band. If you like what you hear, consider subscribing to the podcast, give us a rating and review, and maybe even tell your friends about us. With that being said, we hope you enjoy the show.
All right, we are live.
Yo, what's up?
Drinking wine like a bunch of bitches.
What'd you say this was? Pinot Noir?
Pinot Noir. It's Decoy. That's the the
brand?
winery. Yeah, the vineyard. Yeah, it's a 21 Pinot Noir.
Is this considered red wine, or is it a completely different thing?
No, this is red wine.
Okay.
Just I don't know. That's the type of grape. I can I'll give you a little rundown here. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm a complete novice when it comes to wine. I like it.
I really just drink like Cabernet when I do. So Pinot is, first and foremost, should be slightly chilled, but we're drinking at room temperature, so who gives a fuck?
That's all right.
Predominantly from Pinot Noir grapes. I don't know. It's kind of dry. It's not as dry as I want it to be. I like really fucking dry wine.
This is like a nice balance for me.
But yeah, I like wine. It's my thing right now because I don't get like super hungover on it. This stuff is like pretty translucent compared to what I'm used to, so I probably won't get as fucked up on it, so that's kind of nice.
I like this so far. This is the second time I've had red wine, and it tastes nothing like the first time that I had it. So I don't know what I had the first time. I would drink this again, or like on my own, or
Red wine is like really good with like steak or like a good burger. Like this would be good with like a good burger. There's something weird with wine culture where like, oh, white goes with fish and chicken, and red goes with like beef and other dark meats. But you can do whatever. Who gives a fuck? It's whatever you want to do.
There's no rules here.
There are no rules.
No.
They're all fucking made up. Kind of like government.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I just I had this sitting in the cabinet at home, and it's a California wine with a California band. I wanted to kind of ask you, like, what is your history with like the Peppers, or?
Yeah, my history with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Up until about the age of, I'd say 13 or 14, my music interest almost lied specifically in butt rock. I loved Korn and Trapped and Disturbed, Crossfade, and all that good shit. And I think it was around my 14th birthday, I asked for a couple records, and they were like Continuum by John Mayer and this album.
Okay.
And I think there might have been like an Incubus album in there or something too. But for me, the Red Hot Chili Peppers were like the first band that I liked that didn't seem to rely on exploding into a big distorted chorus. It felt like they were a good transition band for me in between like going from like generic rock to, for example, like a year later, I was like buying Radiohead and Modest Mouse CDs and shit.
Like kind of opened you up into different genres.
This felt like a good in-between.
Okay.
Now, the reason why I wanted to do it for the podcast is because, I think we kind of talked about this at the end of our Inception episode, the Chili Peppers are like kind of a classic band, question mark.
Yeah, for sure. Now they are.
But it feels like, I don't know when this happened, but it's like the whole world outside of their own hardcore fans like kind of just decided they don't like them anymore. And I was included in this conversation.
Okay.
Or in that crowd. I don't know. Over the last couple of weeks, it felt nostalgic going back to it.
Okay.
And just kind of wanted to see what your take on it is.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Well,
it's not sacred, by the way.
Okay. I wanted to preface the podcast before I give my opinion on it because, like, I know who the Red Hot Chili Peppers are. I've heard Californication and Under the Bridge, and I don't know, it's just your standard, like, run-of-the-mill for the band. And I never really got into them. I mean, they were on my Apple Music, like, when Apple Music first came out. I got introduced to them that way. I was probably, like, freshman in high school. And, I listened to it because it was a thing to listen to, but I was never, like, infatuated by them. It was, like, never a genre, like, I don't know, California rock was never, like, my thing. I guess, for me, overall, I kind of find the record, like, really boring.
Really boring?
Really
okay.
boring.
I can see that.
It's not like it's bad, either. It's not like it's bad music, like because there is like bad rock. Like let's be very clear.
There's a lot of it.
There's a lot out there, but I just felt like a lot of the record did not resonate with me, especially with some of the more challenging records that you've like thrown my way. With like I think like most recently was like Mars Volta, like even the Swans, like stuff like that kind of like forces you to like understand. With this record, it was like there wasn't a whole lot to pick apart for me, and I felt really kind of underwhelmed by a lot of the record. But it's not bad. It's just it never felt like it fully resonated, or I could never get in the culture surrounding the music, because I think as we move through, we'll see like drugs, love, and good vibes. A lot of
the Chili Pepper special.
Yeah. And it's something that like I think if it's nostalgic for you, I want to understand what still works for you, because there's a lot from my perspective when I'm thinking about, okay, what does Getter like? I'm thinking this guy wants like 7 minutes of drone and there's none of that here really at all.
True.
But it's also like a long fucking record. It's like over an hour long. It's about an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So it felt like kind of like one long track to me a lot of the times.
Okay. That's fair enough. I completely get that. I mean, the Chili Peppers in this era, they're floating on this like adult contemporary alt rock, I guess. I didn't think that it would challenge you. I knew it wouldn't. I was just curious, knowing that the Chili Peppers were in the 90s and 2000s, probably like in the top 10 selling bands in terms of like record sales and stuff. I don't know. I just wanted to kind of see like what your take on it was. This record is actually a lot different from a lot of their other stuff. Should I get into like background stuff at all?
For sure. Because you definitely have more of an understanding of their history than I do.
So everybody looks at the Chili Peppers as being like kind of a 1990s band, but they're really like an 80s band. They'd been around for like a decade by the time that they first started getting radio play.
Yeah.
They were working like this underground, like funk metal hybrid, like kind of like a punk attitude. And they've like transformed a lot over the years. Like they have a long storied history. Their original guitarist, Hill Slovak, died from a heroin overdose in like 1989. And that's when like Frusciante hopped in. I think like the whole band were like heroin addicts leading up until like this album. And this is like kind of like their sobering, calming down. This is a band on their 8th album.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like last time we talked about an album, weirdly enough, early 2000s, Rick Rubin produced record featuring Chili Peppers members with the Mars Volta, which is kind of weird that I did this directly after. And like the heroin tie-in too with that album. But I see this is like an optimistic, hopeful, like everyone in the band is having like a good time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it definitely comes off that way. There's actually a guy I work with that like wears a Red Hot Chili Peppers hat like all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's a young kid. He's real nice and everything, but definitely likes them a lot. And I want to talk to him about this record next time I see him. But I guess that's something that kind of bothered me about the record, is that there was not a lot of substance. I never felt like I was being challenged emotionally by a whole lot. Because I think when we're talking about specifically like heroin use and drug overdose, when we like dive into the Mars Volta record, I'm like, yeah, this is what that is.
Yeah, like the depravity.
Yeah, the psychedelia involved in that. I guess like to me, at some points it kind of came off like, I don't know, like if you want to like do some misery porn, like really lean into it and not just.
Well, I don't know if it was like trying to tackle it in a dark way. Like this is like you get on the other side of it.
Yeah,
finally,
Yeah, it's weird to me though, because it doesn't really feel like a concept record at all, and that's something that kind of like turned me off.
You were wanting concepts?
Yeah, a little bit, because I mean we have like is it 16 tracks?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, I never felt like there was a line being run through from start to finish of like, here's what we're gonna grab onto.
You're not wrong. The Chili Peppers, they're definitely indulging in like what a lot of other 90s bands did once they spilled into the 2000s, where the compact CD came out like in the late 80s, early 90s, and it's like, hey, we can fit 80 minutes of music on the CD. So it's like there's no B-sides or anything. They're like, let's throw everything on the record.
Yeah.
Although I think this session produced like 30 songs and then like 16 made it on there. Do I think there should be 16 songs on this record? Absolutely not.
Okay.
With this album, I'm coming at it in the way that I appreciate the melodies, the songwriting, the uplifting, like flower power psychedelia type shit.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that in there.
It feels kind of good to go back to stuff like this every once in a while after I kind of like sit in that drony, abrasive, expansive, progressive type shit. So yeah, I see a lot of like Beach Boys and like Beatles-esque type things going on here. When I was 14, I didn't have that knowledge quite the way that I do now. So it's like kind of interesting to look back at it with like new eyes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I want to step away for a minute and listen to maybe a couple tracks and then hop back in.
All right, let's do it.
So assuming we should just go ahead and talk about a few tracks.
Yeah, we took a break and listened to like a cluster of 3 tracks. So
probably do that the whole time.
Yeah, I'm cool with that too. Opening track, By the Way. When I think about this album, I never think about this song.
Really?
Not really. Are you about to tell me it's like a track highlight?
No, I guess for me, I view it as kind of a... I mean, obviously it's the title track and it's up front. I know like the song itself was put there because I think their managers were like, oh, like they were really excited about the track itself. And they were like, we should put this up front. And like also it was a single and it was really successful. And I guess I could see why it was. It was nothing that I haven't heard before by the Chili Peppers. But like, you know what I mean? Like sound wise, it felt like kind of up their alley. But
yeah. Had you heard this one before?
Yeah.
You had?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very specifically because it feels like a little bit of dad rock. Like it's got some summer dad rock. Fucking, what is it, 96.3 or 90, what is it, 90?
96.5?
Yeah, something like that. 96.5.
Yeah. This is a weird one for me. It had a lot of success when it came out, but this isn't really like one of those like de facto Chili Peppers songs that you hear on the radio now. Californication, Scar Tissue, like that shit that gets played to death. Like, By the Way really isn't in that category. I think it's a good intro track. I don't know what else would be an intro track besides like Can't Stop maybe, because this is one of the only ones where like the tempo kind of picks up.
Maybe weird, but it kind of reminds me of Smashing Pumpkins, like the breakaway that dun 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 dun.
Smashing Pumpkins.
I don't know. It kind of reminds me of like Cherub Rock or something, opening up to fucking Siamese Dream.
I could see that maybe.
You know, it gives me like similar vibes. It's an opening track. It feels like an opening track.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it.
There's only really 2 parts going on here, right? Like the intro is the chorus.
Yes.
And then like the energetic parts are like these funky breakaways. I don't know how I feel about like Anthony Kiedis' vocals during the funk moments on this track with like the talk box vocals. I don't know. How'd you feel about that?
I like talk box, but you know, I want that shit like in a soul song.
Yeah. They were using it like as like a robotic element
Yeah.
here. And like the random phrasings that are thrown out in this section are kind of like strange to me, where he's just like boot cut, shark knife,
Main
like,
line.
I'm like, what the fuck is he? What's he saying?
He's rapping, bro. He's rapping. It's better than the rap we have today most of the times, but
yeah.
This is off topic, but fucking, have you listened to the Travis Scott record a little bit?
I did actually.
I've listened to it quite a bit this week.
I kind of like it.
I like
moments.
Yeah. I like some songs. I like Pass really hard on like Playboy and
Ew, that one track with him was terrible.
Yeah, like really bad. But yeah, I've been listening to that a lot this week. Just like here and there because I've been on a dry spell. I don't know if you have either, but I've been on a dry spell.
I really have been.
Yeah, you know, it's a good track. By the way, it's fine.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay. I really like Universal Speaking. This is like a track highlight for me.
Same.
This is one of the tracks on the record where I feel like actually kind of fits the vibe of the actual tone of the record.
I agree. A lot of albums do that, don't they? Like the Red Herring first track. Mm-hmm. And Rainbows has that too. Mm-hmm. Blonde. There's a few. We've talked about a few on the show that are like that.
Yeah, in Rainbows, it's like Give Off Some Kid A. God, it's a really, like, 15...
Like, they get in your face for the first 2 tracks, and it's like, all right, now we're going to calm down.
Yeah. But yeah, this track specifically, like, the chorus, like, reminds me of the Beatles. I think part of it, like, the harmonies that back up, like, feel very Beatle-esque, Beach Boys, which is nice. You know, I that's something that appeals to me. The song, like, doesn't get off the rails or anything. It feels like a nice, tight, concise, soft approach that I guess I've never really heard from the band, which was like unique for me when going into the record. This is like one of the things that stuck out to me. Don't get me wrong, I think there are like plenty of times where I feel like I'm inundated with like the same vibe of like Chili Peppers, but like this is the one where I'm like, oh, this is the first time I feel like I've heard something unique by them.
Yeah, they really don't have any other tracks that sound, or not many at least, that sound just like this one. The melody feels like it was written by Paul McCartney.
Yeah, yeah.
I know that this album is like mostly written by the guitarist, John Frusciante.
Yeah.
I think this is like really the only time this happened in the band's history. But he's the one that's bringing the different flavor to this album as opposed to like the extra funky shit everywhere else in their discography. The harmonies are great. I like the swirling psychedelic effects that kind of introduce themselves after the first chorus, I think. This just feels like a classic song. Like, it's so basic. I think I wrote in my notes that the solo sounded a little goofy to me for some reason. Like, it had like a kind of like generically beachy sound to the tone. Like I felt like I was in SpongeBob and I was watching a band play at like the Shell Shack or something. My God. You know what I mean?
I thought this track specifically was one where I actually will go back and listen to this track.
Okay.
That's something that if anything, even though I think as we'll get further down, I will probably start to shit on some things at times, but
as will I.
Yeah. I think if I can get a little bit, I can kind of open the door, months down the road, I'll probably be like, oh, I kind of get it.
Yeah, that's how it usually is with most of the albums we do on the show.
The seeds are being planted right now, so not terrible so far. This is the place.
I like this track. I wouldn't say it's like a highlight or anything, but I enjoy this one. I think.
Dude,
is this like not a good one for you?
This is like the first when I was listening to the record this week. This was like front half. Like I get like really pissed off. Like a lot.
The front half?
The front half.
And not the second half.
We'll get there.
Okay.
The only reason I say that is because, as you'll see, as we keep going, I just like get really frustrated with the fact that I feel like we're talking about the same thing over and over and over again.
Like on a lyrical front or like you describing the song?
Like lyrical. Like,
yeah.
Like lyrically, it's like, we did drugs and it was not good.
There's a reason this band is memed up so much. Like, every song's about California. Like that thing. The white guy rapping. I get it. It's kind of hard to take serious.
Yeah, and it's not that I don't get it, but it's...
I don't know if they really care about being taken serious, though.
Yeah, and that might be true as well.
There's something like kind of playful about the band in a way. And I think that it doesn't always mesh well considering like the topics.
Yeah.
Where he's throwing out... There's a lot of like cringe lines on the record that I will bring up throughout, I'm sure.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like some of the lyricism. I mean, I don't think it's anything superb, but specifically on this track, I mean, the only things that like stand out to me where he's like, can I isolate your gene? Can I kiss your dopamine? I'm like, yeah, of course I get it. Like that's a very fun way of saying, yeah, like heroin attaches onto your fucking brain and like that's the only thing that makes you happy. And I know that on the day my best friend died, I couldn't get my copper clean. And then I like looked into it and it's like, oh yeah, like he didn't even go to his best friend's funeral.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh shit. Like that's like dark, but it's
like
also
pretty
like
heavy shit.
Yeah, but it's also like it's like fucking let's fucking like here's the vibes, man. It's fucking we're singing about some sad shit, but like
yeah, maybe the tone and the lyrical content are a little mismatched here. I don't know. I think like the tune just sounds good, honestly.
Yeah.
The bass is moving on this one. There's like these weird stabs of, I can't tell if it's synthesizer or guitar with like a lot of effects on it. I think this has one of the strongest choruses on the album. I mean, the verses aren't doing a whole lot for me, but this is my calling. There
you go.
I like the melody writing on a lot of this album. That's what's doing it for me a lot of the time.
That is fair. I'll give you that. I think one of the things that frustrates me is that I may not be a huge fan of his vocal delivery.
I'm not either, I don't think. He's like divisive to me, like to my own brain as I listen. Because I think there are times where he actually sounds like tender, honest. He can be a little pitchy at times too, which is weird on like a studio record by like a big band.
Yeah, and that's something that's going to come up later for sure. Like very specific moments where I get like really pulled out of it because I just feel like it's not living up to like the brand. Like it felt like, you know what I mean?
I feel like this is a band of like really competent musicians, and then like they have the vocalist. He doesn't match the creative energy of everybody else, I don't think.
Yeah.
But he's also like the unique thing that like got them hits on the radio. Like,
Yeah.
this worked at one time.
He's very floaty.
Yeah.
You know, he's very floaty, and then you jump into like some drum break, and he's fucking, he's rapping kind of. I mean, it is like rap. Like, I mean, it's a lot of like rhythm based lyric delivery, and it's not bad. But I think when you're mixing like the themes and then the lyricism plus like the delivery, like the tempo and the tone of the music, it just comes off like really wishy washy. Like they're telling you, but I can't really feel it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, honestly. This isn't an album that's emotional to me.
Yeah.
I think it was emotional for the band, but it's just not translating. There's, before we hop off of this one, there's like some lines that actually like sparked memories in me. Years ago, I actually read Anthony Kiedis' autobiography when I was like in 8th grade, maybe. Yeah. And there's a line on this song about like, I don't want to do it like my daddy did or something like that.
Yeah.
From what I remember, there was like some twisted stories involving his dad from this book, like blowing weed smoke in his face and shit. Yeah, I went to the Genius last night and was like being reminded of a few of these. I don't know if this one is mentioned on there, but like his dad let him have sex with his dad's girlfriend when Anthony was like 12 years old.
Jesus Christ!
Like he was fucked up early on. So the drugs and all the allusions to like sex in Chili Peppers music, like I feel like he's
There's some twisted things about it. Yeah,
like he's got like a sex addict thing going. I think, and this is one of the only albums where I don't think that like he doesn't sing about sex in such a blatant way.
Yeah,
like on Universally Speaking, like that felt like a romantic love song.
Well, yeah, and like that track specifically, one of the reasons why I liked it so much is because although like I think I'll like spit in the face of like a lot of the tracks on this record, I think that was one of the ones where I was like, oh, like it is like a bittersweet like song. You came across to me like, oh, like you love somebody and it doesn't work out, but like at least the universe is going to reward you for taking it on the chin and like loving the best you could, and like there's like no spite in the end and stuff, and like I don't know, and like that song is very uplifting and soft, and it comes through almost like churchy.
Churchy,
yeah.
I think I know what you mean.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of harmony, and that's the stuff I like. But yeah, that is fucked up.
Yeah. But, this album is about, like, getting past those things. So
that's true.
Like, he, like, finally showed some matureness on this one.
Piss break.
Dosed.
Yeah. I have a feeling that you, at least from some comments that you made during the listen, you don't like this one, right?
Well, in my notes, I say this feels a little redundant at this point because...
Damn, already?
Yeah, like, I don't know. And I mentioned earlier, but, like, it just feels like, the themes are so closely tied to, like, drug use and, like, heroin and all that shit and addiction. And it feels like that kind of, like, weighs heavy on, like, all the songwriting here. And so, like, everything is through that perspective. And so it kind of feels... whatever. But, like, it's not a bad song. I mean, there's shit. I mean, like, even the guitar, like the... I mean, that almost kind of, like, reminds me of, like, Modest Mouse, to be honest with you. Like, the clean guitar. I know it gets, like, kind of, like, overshadowed and, like, it gets built upon throughout the song. But I'm like, oh, like, that's easily, like, an indie little... note combo there. And then, you have your pre-chorus, like, lay on, lay down, do some heroin. No big deal.
Is that like what the annotation is on Genius?
Yeah, and just like, I mean, it comes across pretty clear. Like, yeah, just shit. I mean, I've seen Breaking Bad. I know what they do. I've been there.
I don't know if like the heroin subject matter really weighs down this one for me like that.
Okay.
I think the verbiage that's being used here is vague enough that if I'm just mildly listening, like it's not going to pop out at me. Like this deep beyond the canyon, like, I don't know. This is actually my favorite track on the record.
Really?
So, yeah.
Okay.
I love this one.
Okay.
I think this one reaches a level of tenderness that I don't think they really hit anywhere else.
That's fair.
I think there's 5 different main guitar lines that are kind of weaving in and out of each other on this one. I wish the mixing did a little bit, or gave a bit more love to the layering. Like there's
you can kind of muddle together.
The production on this record is not my favorite.
Yeah, that's something like I wanted to talk about because it's like fucking the vanilla wizard himself, Rick Rubin.
Yeah,
produced this record, and I mean, hell, it's fucking 20 years ago, but still,
I mean, The Last in the Comatorium was 1 year later.
Jesus Christ.
And remember, that record was like, the production was great on that album.
The production was fucking crazy. I get those songs come up on Spotify. Like I have not the shuffle, but the DJ feature. Have you used that yet?
I have not.
You should use the DJ feature because sometimes it's really hit or miss, but like sometimes it'll catch a run of like really good tracks like back to back to back. Like he'll put together like a vibe, like the algorithm will. And that came up a couple. He played a couple tracks from that record, and I was like, yeah, I'm in the pit now. I'm in the, and that's one where I thought like, I'm like, God, like the production really held up for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just the style that this band uses, but there's only a handful of times where I felt like the mix was like really good, or I felt like the mix was timeless, and it didn't really shine on this track particularly. But no, I mean you're right, it is a tender track. I mean for the band it does feel like, oh yeah, for sure, but I'm not used to that.
That's kind of like one of the reasons why I recommended this record. Like the band kind of operating not too far in their cliche, like their own cliche. I mean, but maybe to you, like they are operating really hard in their cliche.
I guess to me, when I think of the Chili Peppers, I think of just the vocals, and it comes across the same as any other album to me that or like any other song that I've heard by them. Like this song is completely different than Californication, but
yeah,
it's not that far away. And I think it's because I don't think his vocals are challenged in any way where like I feel like he's growing as a vocalist, and that like bothers me.
Yeah, he's not great. He's still not great.
I mean, like he's a nice dude. Like I've seen like long form podcasts with the guy, and like his like perspective on life is like really unique, and like
he's been through some shit.
Yeah, and like he's really kind, and you definitely can see that. But I just am not a huge fan of his singing, and like it's just not really for me. And I know, like you said, like you're kind of on the fence about it too. But
yeah,
like,
I think me and you are on the same wavelength right now. The only difference is I like it.
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, the vocals are bad, but I like it. It's just that way sometimes.
I mean, I'm sure Tom York comes across fucking atrocious to most people.
Oh, I'm sure.
So
100%.
It ain't no big deal.
I don't think he sounds too bad on this track. I think maybe I like this one so much is because like Frusciante's vocals are actually like more dominant in a few parts.
Yeah, I feel like most of the record he plays backup to like chorus.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He's kind of like always there. This seems like the record with the most of that going on, more emphasis on harmony. I think this track is one of the only ones where when it kind of detours into like the guitar solos, like I think the solo itself is a little bit more interesting. There's a few times on the record where I think the guitar kind of takes a boring route during the solos, and this is one of the ones where I don't feel that way.
Okay. I feel that way a lot of the times as far as like the solos are not that memorable. And
They're very basic.
I think the majority of the time it's like, it never feels like, and here's the solo. It's like, oh, we're just like going to slowly just like slide into a solo. We're using the same tone that you've heard the whole time. So nothing like ever feels like we're building into something grand. It kind of just feels like
it's not very dynamic.
Yeah, we're going to slide into the same tone that you've heard already in this song, and it is going to just lead us for a minute and a half. And that kind of bothers me a little bit because they're not really being like showcased in the way they should. Don't get me wrong, there is a time on the record where I'm like, yes, this is a solo, and like this feels like good. But when your song structure is, and this might be tying back to maybe the band isn't trying to be taken so seriously. The vast majority of the times, it doesn't feel like the solos are really there to be solos. They're more of just like we're kind of just doing whatever.
I think a lot of that might be attributed to the production. I think this record sounds really compressed. I would argue that probably when they did these sessions, the songs sounded more dynamic, but everything is like bricked together.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
I think that kind of kneecaps a lot of like what would be more memorable moments.
Yeah, like you might be right because
it is so compressed.
Yeah, it is really flat. And you know what's funny? I was cutting the grass today and I listened to the vast majority of this record, and I was like, first and foremost, I'm on the mower. It's loud as fuck. So I'm already...
You have to blast your headphones.
But I was like, I have to get off of this for a minute because I feel like I don't know where I'm at in the record right now. And then of course I put on Utopia just to be like, nah, this is fine. Just like, this is what I've been used to all week, you know, like out of
pristinely produced record.
Like, oh, this is dynamic as fuck.
Yeah.
And even though like I don't like a lot of the songs, I'm like, there was like, this isn't the fucking Travis Scott Utopia record that we're reviewing, but there are like, that record is actually like really experimental for Travis Scott, even though like, I think Astroworld was like a step above Rodeo, but like they're front and back halves to songs and like really dynamic transitions into certain things. And I needed
long detours.
Yeah, I needed that. I needed some resets. Like I needed to feel like I could like wipe clean something.
Yeah.
You might be right. There's a lot of compression.
The beginning of Universally Speaking, if my headphones are too high, it hurts my ears. Like it feels like everything is like kind of loud, but not loud enough at all times.
Yeah. Is this Rick Rubin's fault?
I think so, actually. He produced their previous record, Californication, came out in 99. That record is one of the most compressed albums I've ever listened to. Yeah. So is he operating in like mainstream mode here, where like the compression sounds good over the radio at the time or something?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah. I don't listen to the radio, but there's like HD radio now. Radio is like kind of pretty all right. I mean, I work at a car dealership, so it's like I can get in somebody's car and like hear what they're listening to. And in some cases, like a lot, especially like some of the newer vehicles, it's like they'll have Sirius XM or like HD radio going on, and I'm like, oh, like this sounds good. This sounds like not bad on the radio now. And then when you're thinking about 20 years ago, it's like, yeah, like, you know, you're driving a 99 pickup. It probably sounds the way it should.
Yeah.
Through the radio. Or like even on even on a CD, you know what I mean? Like speaker systems at the time, you got to think are not really built for, like we have like, I guess we don't really think about it, but we probably have like studio quality setups as far as like the amount of speakers in our cars nowadays.
I'm sure.
Compared to what it used to be, which was like you have a couple door speakers and like if you're that guy, you have a sub.
Yeah.
Like you don't have like the tweeters and you know what I mean? Like you don't have like the dynamic range quite like they did back then. So that kind of makes sense. But like it doesn't really like stand up to like the test of time.
Modern scrutiny. Yeah. I get that. A lot of albums from that era are like that.
And it might be because it is mainstream too. Like when you talk about like, the Mars Volta, that's like on the fringe. And like I think you can kind of get away with like really dynamic producing because it's like, yeah, that's for people that want that.
The only time that I think the production like is doing something interesting, not too compressed, is actually on this next track, Don't Forget Me, at least during the verses.
Yeah.
Now, the chorus is blown out as fuck. It is so loud, like unnecessarily. How do you feel about this track, though?
This was actually like thematic, and like I'm gonna be honest with you, like my headspace trying to listen to this record was just like not the best. Like I won't like bring it up too much on the air, but like I've been like battling the fucking stress lately because I'm in like a weird spot right now with like transitionary period in my life, and like it's been like my fucking theme this year for my life is to like completely transition out of living at home and like taking on more responsibility, as I should, and I'm very excited, but it's been really difficult for me.
Yeah,
like
you can't get a break, really.
Yeah, and it's been hard to like unwind, and I'm in like work mode, and so when something is not like, I'm scrutinous with like my media consumption. If it's not the best thing in the world, it's like, get the fuck out of my face. You know what I mean?
I've noticed that with you.
It's like I don't have time
Yeah.
to like piddle around with mediocrity right now because I feel like my time is really crunched. And so when listening to the record, it's like, okay, like let's do something.
You know, that's funny. That's actually the opposite reaction of what I would expect from like somebody else, I think. Stressful time in your life. We're doing this podcast, like an easygoing record, but it's like hell for you.
Yeah.
Like, do I need to like recommend Death Grips or something?
Yeah,
Is
you know,
that the
like
direction we need to go in?
I want something that, okay, we saw Oppenheimer together, and although like it was one of the most cerebral, sensory overload, most powerful things I think I've ever watched in my life, I was like completely and utterly blown away, and it felt good to feel that. And I wanted it. You know me better than most. I operate at an RPM that like is probably not healthy for a lot of people. And so when I'm stuck in like something that doesn't like completely vibe with me, I want out.
Okay.
And so coming back to this track, Don't Forget Me, it's like one of the only tracks thematically where I felt like, oh, this is like a unique perspective for the record. Because I feel like earlier on we've been like wishy-washy in between like this love for a person and like love for drugs, and the song kind of blends together thematically. This track, it's like, okay, so the lyrics come across as like the drug talking to the person. I'm like, that is like a perspective that feels unique to me.
It is
throughout the listening experience that we've had so far. And then don't get me wrong, like it still feels like kind of like overkill for me. It's not bad. To me, one of the few things that I found redeeming was like the guitar solos in this track were unique. Like the tremolo technique that like really builds in. It's like crunchy and it's like very grunge-esque at times. I like that. I felt like a tone that like I'm not really used to like thinking about when it comes to like the Peppers. Like,
yeah,
it felt like
this is very unexpected by them.
Yeah, I don't know. Like a lot of their guitar tones are like really warm or like clean. A lot of like percussive elements. Or like on this track, it felt like the guitar was the rhythm, but it was like crunchy and dirty and gross, and I like that. That's a unique thing going on compared to like where we started so far, where it's like floaty and doing my thing,
like the soft alt rock stuff.
Yeah,
not really your thing.
Not right now.
Not right now.
But like this track, I'm like, oh, I can get behind this. This is a little bit more. Even though I don't think it's the most challenging thing in the world, I'm like, this is like a unique thing so far in the record. I'm an inbred. I'm a pothead. I'm like, yeah, you sure are. Me fucking too.
Yeah, I do think that a lot of the album might be missing like some kind of element of grit. Could be production, could be just like the influences, the inspirations that they're drawing from are too soft. That with the production, it's not meeting the needs of like the songwriting, really, I don't think.
Yeah.
But yeah, the guitar hitting these like psychedelia moments on the verses. This is actually one of my least favorite like vocal performances by Kiedes. Like on the verses specifically, I think it kind of sounds goofy.
A little bit.
The tone of the song is almost matching the depravity of like the perspective the lyrics are coming from.
Yeah.
But yeah, Anthony's singing, not really there. Did he really have to begin the chorus by just going, oh, like this long, like, oh? He does stuff like this a few times throughout the record that like kill me. I'm like, just you don't have to do that. You can do something else.
You what do you call that? The millennial whoop?
Yeah. I don't know. It was like that was a boring choice.
Yeah, and maybe that's part of what you said earlier with this is the band's feel good. Maybe they're just kind of like, we're doing all right.
I thought you would vibe with this a little bit more than
God, I'm sorry.
No, hey, it's okay. Nothing is sacred on the show. It's giving me a...
Not even Jesus Christ. Fuck that guy.
Especially him.
That's awful.
We better talk about the Zephyr song, or this might end up being one of our longest podcasts of all time.
Yeah.
And we thought it'd be one of the shortest.
Jesus Christ. We're on track 6. We got 10 more to go.
There's a few that I have very little to say about.
Let's talk about this, reconvene, and like trying to make a marathon.
Okay. I like this one.
I actually do too. This is like the flower power, like
it feels like the best encapsulation of that so far.
Right. Fly away on my Zephyr. Zephyr is defined as a gentle breeze blowing in from the west, often considered to be the mildest and most favorable of the directional winds. Okay.
That sounds a lot like this album.
Yeah. I don't know. I like the thematical elements going on here. Power of nature. I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, it is. Like, it is. Mm-hmm. We talked about fucking me standing outside, fucking smoking a cigar, enjoying the weather. It's like, yeah, there's something nice about sitting outside, and I feel like I like this song a lot for that reason. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's like been kind of my grounding throughout the weird transition that I'm in right now into adulthood, is like being outdoors, like just sitting down, soaking in the sun.
There's nothing quite like it, although I won't go like camping or anything.
I could sleep on a dirt floor and be happy as can be.
I'm sure you would.
For real. But yeah, man, like he's onto something. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
You know. I've never done psychedelics, but I feel like this is something that might resonate when you do it. You know, I'd be like really curious to know what his history is with psychedelia outside of like fucking heroin. That's a different story.
I cannot remember from his novel. I don't know if I think like opiates was the thing for him outside of weed.
You know, I just think that the song definitely encapsulate what it feels like to like frolic through a field of like flowers or something.
Better than many songs that I've heard in a weird way.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique thing. I feel like maybe tonally for the band, or like this like kind of encapsulates the vibe of like some latter Beatles records, but it's also like through the lens of a 90s alt rock band.
Yeah,
that's kind of fun.
I see a little bit of like Magical Mystery Tour era Beatles here.
That's an album we need to digest at some point.
Yeah, I don't know if you've listened to that one really, or if I've even shown you many tracks by it.
Yeah, I've heard a couple.
It's a good one. Most of their records are good ones.
Yeah, I'd agree with you.
I think we said this off the air, but I appreciated like the electronic drumming element here. Where was this on like other tracks? I think that would have been kind of interesting to like expand on that.
That is a good point, because don't you feel like there should be inklings of that in other tracks? Like I never feel like there is we're talking about theme, and like yeah, it's the band's feel good on the other side of some addiction problems, but it's like where are like the unifying instrumentals? Because 90% of the record is like guitar, drum, and bass. And like this is the line that we're running with. And then like you derail with like a song like this. Like although it's great and it's like really, it's like, oh, like this is unique for the record. Mm-hmm. But like where is this feel good that we're trying to describe everywhere else?
Yeah. I feel like the sound that they're chasing on this record, like it kind of embraces, or you would think it would embrace, this electronic element. They stay very true to like the core members of the band. And,
right.
And it's like that all the time. Every other album by them, it's always about like these four guys.
They have their thing and we're going to showcase it.
Yeah. They're just not the type of band to get like super atmospheric. And I think considering like we've heard some really atmospheric stuff like in our lives at this point, that it just doesn't hit. Where's the synth? Where's the like the overdubs?
Where's some chimes? Throw some chimes in there.
Yeah.
Like there should be something.
Like horns or
yeah, there isn't like enough additive elements on top of the core sound of the band, right? Where a band can stay true to their sound and like add a flair to it, and then you can kind of expand upon their previous sound in that way, where like this would be the record to do such contextually, but you don't really get that throughout, which like is like kind of bothersome. And like we'll get it later with like Cabron. That's a track that like kind of derails completely from like the rest of the record. But it's like,
hey, they tried something.
They tried something, right? And it's like, okay, but like where, and like that's one of my biggest critiques of the record is like, okay, you're derailing. It's not a concept record really. It's like a thematic record that's like really long. So like there should be these expansive moments to like showcase this growth that the band is going through, but you don't really get a whole lot of it.
Yeah.
So it's like frustrating.
There's a lot of like reminiscing over the past and like being happy that you've gotten over it, but there's not a lot of like actual pondering instrumentally.
Right.
And that is what's missing here, I think. But then at the same time, like, am I expecting too much out of like the Red Hot Chili Peppers?
Yeah. Know? Right.
They've always been like the instrumental band, the guys, you know?
The dudes are jamming. They're doing their thing.
I think they probably care a lot about like replicating the songs live as is. You know what I mean?
And that's fair.
I think that's like the attitude they probably come from.
They feel like a touring band. They feel
and
like
they are.
Yeah, right. You know what I mean? I mean, even like, this is like random, but like I think like Roger Waters, like Pink Floyd, he's like definitely held true to the whole vibe that they've given off the whole time, even though like their records like completely, they go through metamorphosis like as a band, and like I haven't given a fuck about anything they release, but because they're a classic band at this point in your brain. But you know, very similar like the Foo Fighters or something. Like it just feels like these are songs we can tour with.
Yeah, there's a lot of bands like that. Most bands are like that.
Right.
Really. It's a greatest hits tour all the time.
Hell, that's one of the reasons why people go to like, we've talked about Dave enough and like without talking about an actual record, but the appeal to going to a Dave concert Dave Matthews is like, a lot of people, they want to hear the hits. And like the band is in a point now, which like we saw them at Riverbend this summer. And it was like literally at one point at Riverbend, he was like literally making fun of people that want to hear the hits. And I'm like, fuck yeah, like that's what you should be as an artist. It's like, fuck you motherfuckers, I'm doing what I want and you're here and you're gonna listen. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I want. Like you're still a fucking human being over there. Like he's not fucking 23 anymore. Like, but
The Zephyr song.
the Zephyr song. Sorry, I don't mean to do this to us.
I think there's a reason why we keep spinning off on this track specifically. I like it a lot, but like there's not a whole lot to say about it. The guitar is good. The harmonies are good. I like the electronic drums. It's a good track.
That's fair. Can't stop. This is the de facto.
Yeah, you recognized By the Way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then this one. Were those the two?
Yes. These are the two that stand out the most prominent.
And you never heard the Zephyr song like on the radio?
Never.
Anything before?
Nope.
Okay. I think that one's popular a little bit. I think Can't Stop is actually a track highlight for me. I don't know how you feel about that one.
Oh, this is a great track. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, this is a good song. Like, this song will stand the test of time.
This one stands out a lot more than many of the other tracks. I've always thought like the structure of this one is really interesting. Like beginning with like this like timpani roll, the bass line presenting itself before like breaking into the like the signature riff. Not many other tracks like seem to work with in terms of structure, like building things. It's like here's the verse, instrumentation, Anthony comes in, chorus. Most of the tracks kind of take that route.
Right.
And this one's like, yeah, we're going to build up things for a minute.
Yeah, one of the few times on the records, it's like the track itself is a little bit more than just on the record.
It's defined.
Right. It feels like a showcase.
Yeah, that has its own personality. Weirdly, this was like the third single from the record, which, like, if you look at it in the way of like the band promoting the record, they thought that this had less commercial viability than By the Way and Zephyr Song, but this is like one of their biggest songs.
Right. I mean, I've heard the song plenty of times outside the record.
Actually, I might know why they did it, because this sounds more like an older Chili Pepper song, I think.
Right.
This sounds more like classic Californication, like Blood Sugar Sex Magic era. And I don't think I realized that till like literally right now.
Well, it's also like, oh, you just realize it like now? Like that's like that's the thing that stands out.
I've never looked at this record like through a critical lens. So like I'm going through it like with you.
I'm going through it. I love it.
Not to be dramatic or anything.
I'm going through it, man.
But yeah, I've never like categorized this as being that.
No, it definitely feels classic. This is their sound. I mean, it is like Linkin Park before Linkin Park. I mean...
Hey, Linkin Park was a thing already.
This is 2002? They're on their way.
Hybrid Theory came out in 2001.
When did Linkin Park get popular? Like 2005, 2006?
No, that first record, like, they were off the jump.
Maybe it's of the time then.
You might be right about that.
But who's to say? I don't know. The chorus is good. I like the background vocals, the background melodies. Like this very floaty,
It doesn't
angelic.
come in until like the end of the verse before we're hopping into the chorus. Yeah, Frusciante sounds great during those sections. And is it me or is the mixing better on this song specifically?
Yeah. Like, you're right. Something about this track specifically feels like elevated compared to most songs on the record.
It does. Like, it doesn't even sound like it was recorded, like, in the same session.
Right.
But it was. So, like,
that's so frustrating. It's frustrating to me because, okay, we have the ability to do something like this, but the vast majority is completely compressed and quiet and, like, muddy and, like, basic. It feels like basic compared to this.
And this one's, like, balancing more elements instrumentally than some of the other ones that we've talked about so far.
And vocally. It just seems bizarre.
Yeah. I think the rapped verses actually work for me on this one.
Right.
This is actually, like, probably the best he's sounded, like, in that style, I think.
Correct. I mean, I completely agree with you. Why do other tracks feel like... Is it because, like, his performance is good and, like, it's not, like, super pitchy compared to, like, other tracks? Or is it that it's produced differently? Like, that's the question at hand.
I don't know.
Is it mixed better?
He is a wildly inconsistent vocalist, so it's hard to say. There's another moment later in the record where I think he sounds okay in that style, like the rapping thing. But it's very few and far between for me with him.
I think like maybe one of the reasons why this sticks so well is that the timing on this track is like very readable.
What do you mean?
Like it's the same through line, that beat, delivery.
Yeah.
Even the guitar is the same. It's being stacked. And
Yeah.
then you have you know, you can break. Sorry, that's terrible. I don't mean to mock him, but you're breaking into actual singing after like essentially the ba 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 ba, like
one
the
note.
same, like it's the same.
Yeah.
The whole song is that, like,
Well,
the drums, the guitar, the vocal delivery is
the syncopation in terms of like
Right.
how everything's coming together.
everything is on the same beat. Is that why it sticks out? Most of the songs come across that way. Or it's like, this one just more iconic for some reason?
It's hard to say, actually.
It's
I
like
don't
so
know.
fucking frustrating to me. I can't figure it out.
There's something definitely weird going on with this one, like sticking out so much amongst everything else. I think when it like goes into the bridge later on, it does like this like ska thing with like the upstroke guitars. Like I think that's kind of unique for the record, where they don't really hit that anywhere else. This guitar solo shredding through at the end, where it's not like super technical, but like the moment is great. Like it's not like what he's playing, but it's just like, like, you know, it's like badass, you know?
You know what's funny about this song is that this song actually has like a groove compared to most songs on the record. I wrote down on my notes, it's one of the only tracks where I feel like I can just put it on and forget it's playing. And like, that's good. Like, I mean that in a good way. The song comes across like a vibe I can get behind. Like, it feels like, oh, like I'm here. I can relax now. It's like,
This is a cool song.
I'm not fighting this song.
Yeah.
Also, like, the song was written, lyrics in mind, as the basis of the rhythm, rather than like the song being written and then the lyrics being written afterwards. The approach to the song was the lyrics are the rhythm. That's what's being built behind it. That's the groundwork. Everything else behind it is being set. And that's why everything sounds so, it's perfectly combined.
Yeah. In a way that like, I think the Zephyr song is the only other single on the record that kind of feels like, and even that doesn't match this song. Like compare this to the first track, by the way, where like that song kind of feels like generic compared to this.
I would argue like that track specifically is like the other de facto, even though it doesn't really come across that way in the context of the record. But
Yeah, I don't find that one super exciting. I know that you don't find like hardly anything here exciting, but I mean like in terms of me.
I Could Die For You. Is this The Weeknd?
I'm going to assume that you're like not super hot on this one.
No, I kind of found it kind of boring. I mean, I know that it is about, to me it comes across more as him singing to his on and off again girlfriend at the time. Yeah, I wasn't super crazy about it. I thought it was kind of boring.
It is kind of a boring song. I like it though.
Okay.
I'm not too mad about this one. I'm a big fan of the chorus, although I hate, and this is another one of those Anthony like can't help but like get in his own way type things. The chorus goes, "I could die for you." But then he has to throw in like the filler line, "What you gonna do?"
Yeah,
I hate that.
Why?
Something else could have gone there, because I think outside of that line, like the chorus is really great.
Right.
This is something that we talked about off air, but I think this back half of the record can be kind of like split into like 2 or 3 categories.
Yeah.
And I think I Could Die For You lies in like the soft tracks that have kind of already been done earlier in the album, but nothing new is here, although there might be like a good melody or so. I know that was a really long title for a category. Then we have songs that fall into gimmick and or experimental territory. Actually, those are the 2 categories, because when I thought of that earlier, Can't Stop was actually its own category. So Can't Stop is category 3.
How do you feel about the song Midnight?
I think that falls into the I Could Die For You category.
I think this song's like really forgettable.
It is. Weirdly enough, when I first bought this album, I remember I got it for my birthday and I listened to it for the first time as me and my family were driving to like Cedar Point. I was like 13 or 14. I think I was with either Logan or Nathan, I think, but I listened to this album on the way up for the first time, and I kept replaying this track for like 40 minutes straight on this drive. And it's weird returning to the record and looking at it and being like, there's really nothing going on this one.
Yeah.
This is the boring song for me. Like, I think this is one of the more boring songs.
Yeah, I thought it was like lackluster.
And it's not like any individual component of this song or I Could Die For You. Mm-hmm. None of the individual components are bad, but it's kind of like this, it's like a soup. Like everything's just melting together in a boring way.
Isn't that frustrating though, in terms of not only is it like a boring song, it's like you're already like adding on to the fact that like sometimes the mix is like just really fucking compressed and like we're rehashing the same idea.
This one weirdly begins with like a string intro for a brief moment.
Yeah.
Was that like expanded on in like the later sections of the track?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it like comes in, but it's also to the point where it's, if you're gonna do it, fucking do it.
Yeah, I really don't think they show up again. And once like the song like introduces itself, there's like a police siren at the beginning of it, which I thought was a odd random choice. I don't think that the verse and the chorus really match each other. Like it feels like they don't belong in the same song. Things will never be the same. And then like it goes to the chorus and it's like everyone. It introduces itself as like kind of like a jazzy chill thing. Then it like tries to get really anthemic, but like it doesn't like earn that moment.
No. I love when you sing on the mic. Like I love when you're just like,
we've both been doing this tonight, by the way.
It's because you can meme the fuck out of this.
This is like Pearl Jam, like Creed territory with like even like that kind of shit.
Yeah, but like when you're listening to Pearl Jam, Eddie Vedder's vocals are like an instrument. It's unlike anything.
He's a great singer.
Right.
But that's the 90s singing.
Right.
With arms wide open.
Don't get me started.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Looking back at me.
Don't. Do fucking not.
This is a subcategory of music that we've just now discovered.
Hey, man. I tell you what. My mom, she's fucking crazy, like all mothers. But the one truest fucking statement she's ever made, she's like, Pearl Jam's debut record is the best debut record of all fucking time. I'm like, you're so fucking cool. Like you're fucking right. Like you're right.
I remember you said that to me one time, and I really had to rack my brain. 10 by Pearl Jam has like never been one of my favorite records, but like I can't disagree with that.
I will tell you, front to back, that record is one of the most solid records of all time.
Maybe I need to go back to it. It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
I didn't even say it that time. I need to go back to that one, I think.
We'll have to venture into that territory at some point. But I want to talk about Throw Away Your Television.
Yeah.
What category does this fall into?
The gimmick territory, I think.
Right.
At least, like, lyrically.
Yeah, like, this song instrumentally just feels like Flea's song. It's like, I feel like we haven't even really talked about, like, Flea. It's fucking Flea.
We haven't.
But, like, I feel like the bass in this track is the one that, like, actually is, like, the momentum mover, which, like, I feel like it kind of gets muddled on for the majority of the record. And this is the track where I feel like, even though it is, like, in gimmick territory, it is the one that feels the most prominent for him as a performer. Like, it feels like this is the track that he shines on, even though I, like, don't really like the track itself. Like, I can, like, kind of respect the fact that he's the person moving the track forward. And then I wrote down in my notes, what I think is interesting about the line, it's a repeat and it's getting old, is exactly how I felt the entire album experience.
Were you writing a goddamn comedy routine to yourself in these notes?
I was like getting like really frustrated trying to listen to the record as a whole. Like it's a lot. It's a fucking lot.
It is a
like,
lot
to like subject yourself to. Like 16 tracks.
You make it sound like Guantanamo.
Like we're talking about an hour and 10 minutes of like at times feels like a muddled mess.
Correct.
And so like other than drugs are bad and love is good, we know how to play rock music. You know what I mean? Like that's what like the fucking album has felt like the majority of the time, where it's like, okay, we know how to fucking do our thing. Here it is. You know what I mean? And so when we're getting like this deep into the record, I'm like, I need a fucking break. I get it. I know you know how to do it. Like, I feel like this track could have been, this album could have been 9 tracks long, and I'd have been like, perfect. It's over. It's done. It was concise, and it was true to the band. But no, it's like, let's fucking tack it on. Let's do the thing.
What's weird is that I agree with you, and I like the album. I do think that there's probably a stronger 9 or 10 track experience in there somewhere. With this track specifically, like you were talking about Flea, and how this is kind of like his standout performance. I think they were like throwing him a bone on this one. He infamously was like the one member of the band that was unhappy at the time. Since Frusciante took the reins on songwriting, John was writing the bass lines for Flea. Like, he wasn't like letting Flea do his own thing on the tracks.
Okay.
And Flea felt so musically inferior that he, one, almost quit the band, and then as soon as Frusciante quit Chili Peppers in 2005, Flea went straight to Berkeley, I think, to get his degree in like music theory, so he could like catch up to Frusciante, because he's like, Frusciante quit the band, now I gotta be that guy. I gotta step up.
Okay.
So his input is largely absent on this record, like Flea's. This is like the one song that he got. It's like not even a great one.
I'll talk about Cabron. This one's so weird. It's so fucking weird.
I have a question for you. Is the title of this song censored on Spotify for you?
No, I don't think so.
Look at this. Track 11.
What the fuck?
Isn't cabron like a friend type
I don't
word?
know. That's so strange. I didn't think anything like that.
The track title is censored on Apple Music, and I don't know why.
Maybe we're not catching on to the woke crowd or something, that there isn't something that we're seeing here.
Maybe so.
This track's really weird because it's like an acoustic dominant mix.
Has that happened yet on the record? Mm-mm. I think this is something I meant to bring up, like when we talked about the track earlier. I think it was This Is the Place, where there's like the bridge has acoustic that comes through. But I saw you out there yesterday. I need to stop doing that.
No, it's fine.
But this is the first time that like the acoustic has taken center stage.
Yeah, it starts off with the acoustic.
Large emphasis on like this Spanish influence. I think this falls into gimmicky or like the experimental category.
I definitely think it's more gimmicky.
It is. I'm not a big fan when like bands play with world music. Like, oh, we're going to do like an Arabian feel on this one. Or like borrowing from a culture that like y'all can't operate in that genre. Like, it's weird.
I get it, you're in California, but like it still feels like kind of cheap and sleazy.
It does.
I wrote down, I know it's about gang violence and how they need to come together through love and happiness, but it feels really cheap and gives off youth pastor vibes. Yeah, you can definitely tell I was like kind of like in this spiteful headspace.
You're not wrong. This is like one of my least favorites on the record.
I like detest this song.
We
don't have to spend too much time there.
The guitar playing sounded nice, like in terms of like technicality, but maybe Frusciante had the idea, but like Anthony's the vocalist. Like,
yeah.
Like, I don't know. It just doesn't work. What's the next one? Terror? This song is okay, and that's coming from the optimistic one on this side of the conversation tonight.
What like really was frustrating for me is that like I kept seeing like love for this record while like trying to listen to it and like write about it and do some research on it, and I'm like,
you mean like looking into like others' view of it?
And I'm like, for why?
See, I fall in that camp to a degree.
I'm like, kind of like, for why? I never really have felt like while listening to the record, I'm like, oh, this is like so impactful, or this is like so resonant.
Well, it's not that for me, for sure. I think me and you like tackled this in a way different way. You were more focused on like lyrical subject matter, where as a fan of the group going in, I'm like, I know not to pay any attention to this. Like,
that's fair.
Like, Chili Peppers, historically, bad lyrics.
This is actually like the only track where I'm like, oh, like the it felt like so like most of the record was let's sing about love and happiness and how everything's good now, and like that's all over like a dad rock kind of vibe. This one was actually one of the few where I felt like it comes across in like an emotional ballad. Like this is one of the only tracks where I'm like, oh, okay, like there's something here.
Okay, the reason why I said it's only okay is because this is actually one of the instances where I think the verse is a bit too sleepy. Now, they are like playing with like the synth on this one. Like a keyboard is actually the prominent driving force in terms of chords. I think there's just not enough like going on. Like there needs to be like an overdub of like, are there guitar overdubs like during the verse on this one? If it's kind of empty to me.
Right.
But the chorus is wonderful, actually.
One of my favorite things about this track specifically was we talked earlier about how some of the solos felt like kind of like bland and like they were just there. This is one of the few tracks where I was like, oh, like the solo is actually prominent because you go from a guitar solo into a trumpet solo, which was kind of interesting, which doesn't show up anywhere else on the record.
I might be confusing some of my emotions for this one with either On Mercury or Warm Tape, I think. You're right, actually. I wrote stuff about the structure here where like the solos come in at more unexpected points instead of like a verse completing or a chorus completing and then going into it. Like the solos kind of like interrupt sections of the song.
Right.
Flea playing trumpet on this one. Those moments is where that's like what I needed elsewhere.
Right. I like this track, but as an album experience, it's like
we're on track 12 and you're tired.
We're just now getting something like that's interesting. Why do they do this? 16 fucking tracks, dude. It's like,
homie, it was the era.
It's just tiresome.
The Moon and Antarctica had this problem too. Same era.
We talked about it, yeah.
Same era, man.
I forgot we did that. Good God. We have a lot of episodes, by the way.
We're at 74.
Jesus.
If you include this one right now.
We're going to keep going. That's the crazy thing. We're going to get to the point where we're like, oh yeah, I forgot we talked about that. We talked about that for like 4 hours.
Hey man, I'm the one behind the editing board. I remember every single episode, like explicitly detailed.
You know, you're the one that has to re-listen. I'm the one that doesn't. I'm like, oh yeah, we talked. I showed up. I fucking said the thing, and I went home.
I have like the entire TDBR canon memorized.
That's hilarious. I completely like dissociate myself from like the. I'm like, oh yeah, I said something. I don't know what I said. I said something there.
That's so funny.
You're like, I have to fucking listen to this guy fucking go on.
I hate the next track.
We can skip it if you want.
This is On Mercury.
Yeah.
It's just annoying. God damn it. Is this a harmonica that they're using like as the verse instrument? Is it accordion? Did I write notes for this one? My note literally just says, never really had this one figured out. Nothing is working for me. It's a no for me on the verse and chorus. That's all I had written for that one.
Like you said, I'm tired at this point in the record. Like,
you look tired right now.
Buddy, I am tired.
I bet.
I'm fucking wore out.
Track 14.
Minor thing.
I actually love this one. I really, really fucking love this track, actually.
Okay. Please tell me why, because...
Much needed boost of energy late in record with classic formula.
I understand. I think like the play on like lyrically on like music theory is like fun. Like you have I changed the key from C to D. You see, to me, it's just a minor thing. Like I don't know. It's like it's kind of cheap, but like kind of fun. Like like I can talk about fucking notes.
You can be like meta.
Yeah.
Like about the music process.
Right.
Dude, some bands are meta about like, have you ever heard a band like mention being a band in a song? Like self-reference themselves? Have you ever heard that happen before?
Not really.
Outside of like hip hop or something.
Right.
In rock music, it's like the band doesn't exist within the canon of like their music.
Yeah, it's like let's dissociate ourselves from like the actual writing process.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, you're right. Like rap, like when I think about, like meta, it is always like hip hop, especially like nowadays, like experimental hip hop. It's like very, it's so much commentary. Like you don't really get that anywhere else.
The only time like in like rock music I can think of where a band is self-referential is like Limp Bizkit, where they like say the name of the band, like Limp Bizkit, put the fucking hands up. Like that's it's badass.
Like
actually.
Kanye's been like, yay, I'm gay. I'm yay. I do yay things.
But like in terms of like being meta about like the music process itself, where people like me and you might get it key of C to D, that means nothing to the average person. I like this track because it actually encapsulates the best elements of the album and like the classic Chili Peppers like formula.
Right.
It's high energy, it's funky, This one sounds more confident in itself than many other tracks on the record.
That's a good point. Don't you feel like some of like the lower energy melodramatic songs are like, yeah, they're not confident. Like he's not selling it very well. And like I think part of that even highlights itself when he is coming across like extremely pitchy and like, I don't know, it doesn't really feel like he's like completely buying into like this direction they're trying to take.
Maybe the shifting of power in the band on this record specifically, like Frusciante taking over. I think like the songwriting is strong on those tracks that don't feel confident, but like not everybody is playing along.
Warm Tape?
This is a really weird one.
Shiver
for me, girl.
Yeah. I like kind of like this one because the synthesizer is there playing a dominant role.
It's a little bit more odd than other tones on the record.
This is one of the tracks where I think really highlights the fact that it feels like he's super uncomfortable as a vocalist, because I think the tempo that this track takes with like his vocal delivery just sounds like really, they do not line up at all.
They don't.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because it's like we should be like building into like the end of the album, but we're like one track away and it's like we're still feeling like we're not there.
This is the second to last song.
Yeah. And like that's frustrating because I don't know, when you're gonna do 16 tracks, it's like, God, you better make goddamn sure that it's like perfect.
Well, that was not the attitude at the time. That's still not the attitude, honestly. If an album has like that many tracks, you're guaranteed a bloated experience.
I hate that. If we ever fucking write a record, it's like gonna be 8 solid minimum.
Yeah. I think 8 to 10 is like perfect LP length, as long as like the tracks aren't like 3-minute like bits.
Right.
You expand, you do some long stuff in there. 8 to 10 tracks. This track is weird, man. The vocals don't match the verses. The chorus doesn't match the verse. Like it breaks into like a Western kind of sounding. Like it's like miles and miles. Like where'd that come from? All of a sudden. On this recent excursion into the record, I've actually realized that the bridge of this song is like unexpectedly good, considering like nothing else on the track is working. And I don't know if I could even like pull out like the melody for the bridge, because I just discovered how much I liked it yesterday, I think.
Yesterday.
Hey.
Hello.
That's a perfect song, by the way. I love that song.
That's a song breaks my heart. It's one of the hardest keys to sing in.
I've never tried to sing a Beatles song.
It's so fucking
ever.
He's a weird vocalist. The key that he sings in on that song specifically is one of the hardest to fucking match.
Like the octave. It's like really high up there. Sustained a lot of the time too. But yeah, fuck this song.
Okay. I love it. I love that you're like, I love this album, but like, fuck this fucking song.
You've rubbed off on me a little bit.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to destroy this record for you.
This is what we did with Inception. I mean, to be fair, dismantling that.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's what I was expecting going into this.
You
to
know,
a degree.
I will say, somebody commented on our TikTok and said about the Inception TikTok about the girlfriend thing, and someone said, must have saw this before Oppenheimer. I meant to comment, fuck you. The fucking mistress dies.
She does.
She does. There's always a dead woman in fucking Nolan films.
Although, I thought it was more earned in that particular case, because there's a conspiracy involved.
Yeah.
So, and it's real life, God damn it.
Yeah, it happened.
Yeah. Last track, Venice Queen. I actually don't know how I feel about this one. I think
It's like a long track for the record. It's like almost 6 minutes long.
But what happens in that time?
It's like kind of all over the place, right?
It is. It's like kind of split into two, but like the two don't feel like they belong next to each other, or like the bridge between them isn't thought out enough. The transition is very jarring.
Here's the thing. At the end of the record, when you're already exhausted, I don't even give a fuck at this point.
Okay, fair.
I'm kind of like, okay, I guess I heard what you had to say, but I don't feel like the ending was deserved in any way. You know what I mean?
I feel like the only aspect of it that makes it feel like a ending track is like the subject matter. It's like one of the few that I actually looked into, because I know it's about I got this from reading Anthony's book years ago, but like the rehab nurse that helped them, and like the song is like in dedication to her because like she died shortly after their stint in rehab. So I think that's the most interesting thing about the track, but it's like kind of like instrumentally a retread of a lot of stuff prior.
Right.
It's trying to be progressive. Like we're going to do a 2-parter but like it just ain't working really. Not for me at least.
I feel like really bad like shitting on the record. And like this is like something that I don't like to do. And
damn, we were really negative.
Yeah.
Even I was.
Well, and like also it's hard for me to like come in excited about something knowing that I have to like kind of shit on somebody's work because like, I don't know, somebody else made this and people probably worked really hard on it and like it still didn't like really resonate in any way that like I found meaningful. I don't like to bring that energy in a lot of the times. Like very rarely am I like, oh, I'm fucking excited to shit on this because I'm thinking in perspective, I'm like, oh dude, like somebody like this meant something to somebody. You know what I mean? I hate to like channel my opinion into that fucking framework, but when I don't like something, and in particularly this case, I like felt the vast majority of the time I had a hard time like grabbing onto anything I enjoyed. It's not bad music. It's just like it never felt like anything more than like the sum of its parts. It was just like we can like put music together in the same key and like here it is. And it never felt like it was anything that was like impactful. Like that was like that's like frustrating to me. It's also like not something that like I want to express. Not that like I can't enjoy a perspective of like something's mediocre and here's why, but it's also like I want to like something. You know, 9 times out of, or I would say all the time. Every time we sit down and do something for the podcast, I'm like, what is the angle? What is the thing that makes this work? Where can I find the enjoyment? And a lot of the times on this record, I'm like, there's not a lot there. Like that's frustrating for me because, you know, I'm like, I want to give the effort.
I think your perspective is interesting because you're hopping in after all of like you've made the evolution musically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is like giving me similar vibes to like the Death Cab episode that we did where age difference between me and you.
Right.
I was like ripe age during the grip that the Chili Peppers had on like rock music.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I can't say that I find the album even mediocre. Like, I think all of our criticisms are valid, and I agree with you on almost every single thing you said tonight. I think it's just that it just doesn't excite us as much as anything else. Like, we don't do super mainstream records on the podcast very often. Is this like the most? I have to think about that for
probably.
a second.
I mean, outside of like Abbey Road and like Siamese Dream,
even those had like a lot going on.
Right.
Like, they felt fringy but mainstream at the same time. I think earlier Chili Peppers stuff actually was more on the fringe. And this is like kind of them like, this is the middle age record. And I think maybe me turning 30 is why I thought about this all of a sudden. Returning to this like comfy alt-rock type shit. I think the way we tackle stuff now, we dissect stuff so much harder than we ever have.
Yeah.
I think stuff like this doesn't really lend itself to that eye as much.
Yeah, you're probably right. And I think that we give so much energy to like trying to like hyper focus on elements of a record that it can kind of come across like really snobby, which like I'm sure for some people it's not like super fun to listen to, and I'm sure I've pissed off somebody tonight, but
I'm sure we both have.
And but it's just like the fact that I feel like, and this is like a huge problem like I felt like I've been running into lately. And I think about like when Nathan came over and hung out with us, you know, he was talking about like, oh, you know, like I just been like playing the stuff I like on repeat. And I'm like, God, like that's a fucking hole that's like hard to crawl out of. And I'm like, I like constantly want to expand like my repertoire.
Same.
And so this is so weird and like frustrating, but like JPEG Mafia is like my favorite artist right now, and it's because that like his shit is so outside of the norm that like people can get behind. And like
I was just thinking about this yesterday, by the way. He's Kanye level of genius, encapsulating every aspect of like the artistic process. He's so involved in everything.
And like the reason why I like it, it's because like I feel like his personality is so fucking present on everything he does. And even going back to his old stuff, I'm like, that's not even the same guy. Like that's not even the same guy. Like I put on like a Veteran the other day, a couple tracks from Veteran, and I'm like, this is nothing compared to the dude that like is releasing music now. And so when I'm listening to stuff like this, I'm like, it's not enough for what I want. And like the reason why Oppenheimer was so powerful is like, it's like, dude, I've seen Nolan films. I'm like, this is nothing that like he has ever released before. Like it's so outside of Nolan's repertoire where I'm like, oh, this is something unique. His filmography has built into this and I can see it now. But I'm like, this is one of the greatest films I've ever seen. And it's the same dude that did Memento. You know what I mean? It's like,
it doesn't feel like
it doesn't feel like we're rehashing anything.
Okay.
It's a completely different perspective. And it's like Nolan doing like essentially a docuseries, long form film where he's expressing history in a way that like is through a lens of like impactful cerebral filmmaking that like is, I don't like, it's expansive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like that's what I want.
Going back to these like simple things is very unrewarding for you.
Yeah.
You know, I like getting back down to basics every once in a while. It's kind of fulfilling to me, at least. I don't know.
I agree with you. Trust me, we're on the same wavelength.
I think the thing with the record is that I like the songwriting, but like the rest of the band isn't there to catch up with Frusciante, like on his vision. The production isn't matching. I think there's something here, but things aren't lining up quite the right way. Now that I look at it as an adult, I see the ideas, but I don't get the execution quite as much as I wish I had.
How do you feel like ratings wise? Because I think for me, I think this record's like a 6 out of 10 for me.
Oh, that seems that seems optimistic considering what we've said
Like
so far.
like it's not okay. It's like, here's my point. It's like, it's not like bad songs. It's just like kind of boring songs.
It's just unexciting to the palette that we've built up.
Right.
I think if I was looking at it at like different grading scales, like for me at this moment in my life, it's like a 6.5 to light 7. I think like as a mainstream record, it's probably like just a solid 7. Like if you put it next to other mainstream rock shit around the time. But yeah, just not as exciting as you would hope it would be. But yeah, White Boy Spiel time.
Yeah. We're talking about nostalgia, and I think I littered this in like the last time we were talking like on Inception and stuff. I think I've had this like record set for a while, and like I'm excited to go back. And this is one of the most impactful records of my life, like for real. And I'm sure you'll probably feel a similar way. But yeah, we're gonna do fucking My Chemical Romance finally.
I knew it.
Yeah,
I fucking knew it.
yeah, it's about time. Like we should talk about the Black Parade. This is a record that like I listened to a couple weeks ago. It will either be exactly what we just did, or it will be like, fuck yeah, man, they were fucking amazing, man. They were the thing.
I could see this being a replica of Tonight.
I think I'll approach this a little bit more optimistically than I did with this record. I think me and you both have a history with a band that is a little bit more developed.
We both have that nostalgia.
Yeah.
For sure. I bought this CD like the month it came out. I was obsessed with MCR.
Buddy, I got this fucking album for my birthday, like when I was a kid, and it was like the biggest deal to me. So I'm excited to digest what otherwise is like a guilty pleasure, I think, for you and I now as adults, like with a critical eye to see how it holds up, and also talk about things that we loved. It's an era that like we need to give some time to, because I think we talked about My Chemical Romance for here and there throughout the podcast. I'm fucking hyped. Like the music videos, dude, don't even get me fucking started.
I think we'll have a lot to draw from
Right.
on this one. It's a concept record to a degree, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
I think this one will have more elements going for it.
Right.
I still hear songs from this on a daily basis. Olivia plays MCR all the time.
Good. She's in the right headspace then.
Just like Tonight, we'll draw comparisons like with, by the way, it was Beach Boys, Beatles. This next record, it'll be like Bowie and Queen.
Yep.
With like the pop punk shit mixed in. I'm ready for it, man. I think that sounds really fun.
All right, homie. That was fun. Until next time, get her if you could do me the honors.
Adios.